Hey!
Hi,
This is Pasquale.
Dr. Traci.
How is everyone doing today?
I always, when you ask that, are you waiting for a response?
I am, because I'm energetically feeling responses from people, and we are connecting on a soul level.
Yes.
So today, this is Crossing Over with Pasquale and Traci.
Yes.
And we're going to talk about the crossing over experience.
Yeah, what we know about it, because really a lot of people, all of us, right, our human experience can't comprehend death. And so we are very terrified and scared of it. And so I think talks like this can help.
Absolutely.
Because it doesn't have to be so terrifying.
There's nothing scary about it. Everyone who's died, they're not scared. It's not scary.
And I was going to say did they tell you? But yes, they actually did.
I've had a couple conversations here and there. In my 20s especially, because I think that's when I was very much into kind of like death and dying, right? Like I'm a Scorpio. That's like one of my big draws in life. And I will tell you that was something that I always looked into. I always looked at it. I always tried to understand death and dying. So I went to the source.
Yeah.
And I was like, so tell me what it was like. What do I need to expect? And I got a really solid understanding.
Mm-hmm. So what is your take on that?
It goes back to, for me, this whole crossing over part really goes back to that whole kind of dance between the ego and spirit. Right? It's that dance that we have through life, right?
Yeah.
And when we start to get closer to that moment where we're about to leave this earthly experience and move back into our spiritual experience, that dance continues and the ego likes to really hold on, right? And so that's the part that it doesn't want to die. The ego wants to continue to live.
I've read that in some spiritual books that if we are scared and our ego does hold on, those are the people who have a more drawn out process of death. 100%. And the people who you hear of that just died instantly are the people that were more accepting.
They've come to terms.
Okay.
Agreed. And the thing to keep in mind, because I always go back to, is one of the number one questions that I get is when you're in the process of dying, is there pain? It's the spirit doesn't feel pain. The ego does, right? But as you start to cross, yours kind of already separating, right? The ego's just grasping and holding on. And so there's not that overall they suffered.
So I've also heard the beliefs that when we are dying, say there's something traumatic of the reason that we're dying. I've heard that the soul kind of begins to leave the body or can come in and out. And so they're not experiencing, as we would think of somebody dying in such an awful way. And a lot of times in the grieving process, people get stuck on that because they almost put themselves in that position and to feel what they may have felt.
Yeah.
And I'm that's not the same thing. Because if our soul is kind of leaving or even coming in and out, and what I refer to is you watch these documentaries on, I think there's different ones on people surviving these traumatic experiences, and they'll even tell you that they don't remember anything. They'll just say it felt like I was hit by a truck. It could be they were stabbed or shot or something pretty brutal, and but they say it didn't feel like anything, and a lot of them and maybe that's the shock factor.
It's that 30
too.
seconds. It's that 30 seconds.
What is the 30 seconds?
It's the way I describe a lot of times. It's this impulsiveness in our bodies, right? It takes 30 seconds. So if you're in that moment of an impact of some
for
form,
it to
it's
reach
30
our brain.
seconds. By that time, you're already out.
Wait.
I know. That
wait,
was
I don't
deep.
wait, I don't get it though. It was too deep for me. I didn't get it.
No, so
Okay, wait.
you
I
know
thought
how
you
you
meant 30 seconds for like if something happened to our body physically that was like making it die, like for our brain to signal our brain to understand what was happening.
it's so that pain, right?
Yeah.
It's 30 seconds and then they're moved. So like they don't feel it because the body doesn't register it
Okay.
until they've already passed.
So is it kind of
so
like
they don't
when you
feel it.
put your hand, if somebody puts their hands on a hot stove, they still get burned because it takes that
30
period of
seconds.
time. Okay. All
It
right.
takes that much time for you to register that pain.
Right.
So when you're going
Well, that
through
makes
that,
sense.
it's
Okay.
the exact same.
30 seconds. I've never heard that. I've heard of the 5-second rule.
It's a little different. And some of us, our 5-second rule is a little longer. My son is like 25 seconds.
Oh my God, my family could be like 30 minutes.
It's all good. It's all good. We're all living this existence for a good reason. But it's like 30 seconds. It's like that impulse. Okay. It takes it that long for that to register. So if you think of it that way, right? Someone who's had a traumatic experience, right? Mm-hmm. A stabbing. Let's use stabbing because that's what you use.
Okay.
Right? Like a stabbing, and it's fatal, right? They're already separating and moving by the time their body is registering the pain.
Right.
Which is why a lot of times, from my perspective, why sometimes they don't realize they're dead, is because it happens so fast. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And
so in
like,
the crossing over process, they're like, "Wait, what
just happened?" And then they'll see the light, or they'll see someone, and they'll feel their people that they love, and they'll recognize things, mm-hmm. right? But it's all energetic. It's an energetic shift,
right? And some survivors on these documentaries have come back and been able to just dial the phone or dial 911 or something like that, and that's generally all they remember. Mm-hmm. But they'll say there's almost like an anesthesia in the body, because they're not processing that pain. It's I think of it as it's just overload. So
yeah, I mean it's that adrenaline rush, right? The adrenaline, our body does have some of that, right? But yeah, that to me is there are so many great books out there that mm-hmm. talk about this, right? And one of my favorites is she talks about the fact that she died of cancer, and in that moment she didn't feel the cancer. She felt her husband crying and her mom being sad, in different countries, in different parts of the world, all at the same time, recognizing, oh shit, oh darn it, I'm dead. And then going, what do I do, right? Recognizing that, and then starting the crossover, actually crossing, and then coming back cancer-free.
Wow.
And it's all just part of that experience, right? Mm-hmm. It's the crossing over part is pretty...
Oh, I recently read a book that talks about that experience. Okay, I know exactly the case study you're talking about.
It's my favorite book. One of them.
Well, there's a couple different ones.
Mine's my
that
favorite.
Reference that.
We'll compare after. It's on that shelf.
Okay.
But I think that the key is to recognize for us is, if you are afraid of death, right, the thing to kind of grasp from my perspective, what I did was kind of look at it and go, what do you believe? Mm-hmm. Right? And it goes back down to faith. And I'm a big believer that, whether you come from a religious background, whether you come from a spiritual background, whether you come from an atheist background, mm-hmm. you still have a belief. Yeah. Right? And it's that belief that gives you kind of that where you kind of land with it. Mm-hmm. And I always just say, if you think about it, right, if love is the vibration that is running everything, which I know sometimes we don't feel it in the world, but it truly is, mm-hmm. right? If that's the vibration, then death can't be. It's just transformation. Mm-hmm. So kind of recognize and kind of grasp that it's not the end. Yeah.
Well, I mean, some people even go further to, in philosophy to say there actually is no death, but we're talking about, of course, the death of our human body, our human form, and then transitioning into spirit. But our energy, our soul, our spirit, whatever you want to refer to it as, that does not change at all. That's just
It expands.
moving on.
It gets bigger.
Yeah.
It's bigger, it expands, it's more energized.
Okay.
You feel more like yourself.
That sounds actually pretty amazing. Okay, so let's talk about so that's the actual like when it happens, like when the actual death happens. So then like what do you know about the process from there?
From the process from when it happens?
Yeah.
So what I've always understood is that you get pulled and you're kind of present for a little while, and your energy slowly gets kind of reattached to like source, right? To like that main energy that we're derived from, right?
Yeah.
And so as it begins to reattach that, it has to reassimilate, right? So you go through a process of kind of letting go of the human, right? Which to me, if you look at it, it's kind of that like judgment, but I wouldn't really call it judgment. It's more of like a review of your life, kind of a review
download. That's what
of what you've experienced in this life. What have you learned? How have you grown?
Yeah.
You know, how's your energy taken a different shape because of it?
Yeah.
And it slowly starts to move. And as you go through that download and kind of that process, you start to reassimilate with like source. And that's where you start to be expansive and can visit, right? And I did skip, of course, because as you're being pulled, like you get greeted by everyone who's had a part in your life, who has crossed.
What's interesting is in my research and reading as well, it's, you know, I think of like, oh, I want to be greeted by my dogs who passed, or like, you know, you're gonna have your loved ones that have passed, but there's also people from past lives that, like, I guess consciously we don't even know that, but like that's like really cool. That was like a little mind blowing for me to think of, like, oh my God, I could have like other dogs and other loved ones, and you know, from other lives that are that
your past
are just
kids.
Waiting. Yeah.
You know,
right.
it goes back to, and we referred to this in one of the past episodes. Don't remember which one, probably the last one. Where it's like you have your like birth family, like your human family.
Oh,
right,
yeah.
And then there's this like soul family. So when you actually leave, right, like what I've experienced, and I've actually sat through several, more than I would say double-handed times, where I've sat with someone who is dying or crossing, right? And the piece that I always see in every single case is I see the energy getting expansive. I can feel the angels coming forward. I can see them acknowledging those beings, right? And they typically, I think we talked about this, I don't remember if we talked about it offline, but like it's the number one thing everyone always says, mom. Like every time it's they see their mom, and it's their mom who's comforting them, kind of helping them through it, right? And as they kind of move into this like party of souls, right, of this energy, they start to get through there, and as they start to enter that, they slowly start to leave, right? And that's where they kind of remingle with kind of that soul family, that energetic group that they've started with.
So it's not necessarily even the mom in this life. It could be a mom from a past life, or it could be another energy that you refer to in your soul family as mom. It doesn't have to be so literal.
It felt pretty literal to me.
Oh,
like
okay.
in each of the times, like I sat with my grandfather when he was crossing, and I remember him saying mom, and he was like calling his mom and then speaking in Italian to her, and I can tell that he was talking to the woman that I knew
that
was
you
his
know
mom.
as his mom.
So a friend of mine, I was with her when her mom was crossing, and it was the same thing. She was talking to her mom. I can tell that it was her mom that actually raised her. But you have to remember the energy is different than the mom that you would have experienced in this life, right? You're thinking of something with pure love, right?
Right.
So it's a very different.
Right. You don't have all the pain with it, just the love.
Yeah, I would imagine that even someone who maybe doesn't know their mom, right? Like my kids are adopted, and you know one of them really doesn't know their mom, and I would imagine that when he crosses, he's probably going to see her. as kind of that person that he's reconnecting with, that kind of like, it's just the comfort, I believe, that you get from that. And if your parents haven't crossed, it's going to be the next figure.
Right.
But when we're talking older, like, it's typically mom. And once that happens, they kind of mingle for a little while, they stick around. I do think they like to visit their funerals, to be really honest. Not to.
I've heard that, but they're like not.
They're not.
They're coming along with you and
they're feeling
family.
the energy of it, right? They're supporting
Yeah.
it. There was a tragic death. A friend of mine, he had a tragic death in his family, and she was next to him as he was speaking, and every time she put her arm around him, he started crying. And he didn't know that, but like, I could see it and sitting there going, oh, this is really, really, really tough, But it's just because they know, right? Yeah. They understand. I think that's the key, right? Is that you have to realize it's not scary. So you have to take the fear out of it and go to love.
Yeah.
The love of it is they understand and they want to be with you and they want to support you, right? But they also have to kind of continue to shed the human.
Well, and I always say too, funerals are for us. It's for us to be able to grieve and gain that closure. 100%. They're fine. It's the ones with the problem is us, the ones left behind here, now having that loss in our life.
Yeah.
The physical loss.
I 100% agree. Like, I actually have said, like, I don't want a funeral. I don't want a funeral home.
Oh, I know, me neither.
Just take me,
burn
me up, drop me somewhere.
I want the Irish wake. Yeah. That's what I want.
We'll do it before. We'll celebrate you before it's time. I promise. I got you.
Okay, so I have also read that there's a process of whatever our beliefs of kind of death, like let's say for somebody that does not believe that there's heaven, or like really does believe in hell, and that's a whole nother can of worms that we won't go down right now. But let's say somebody does really believe in a hell, and
we're gonna pack that on the shelf.
Yeah, but so it's hard to explain. So I guess when they cross over, they will still have to deal with their own
version,
perception of what they believe, because what we believe is actually what we experience as soon as we cross over. And there's like guides that can help us through that process, but some people can get stuck there, and that's like considered their hell.
You know,
have you ever heard that?
Totally.
Okay.
That's that shedding part.
Okay.
Because you have to shed the human, right? The human idea, the human ideologies that we have, right? The reality is, and how I will kind of explain it from my perspective, right? Like, so my truth of it is that we create, if you look at you today, right? Today we are here in this room. I'm creating the world that I'm living in.
Right.
Today, right? And so everything that happens is a result of what I have created.
Well, our perception is our reality.
Yeah, exactly, right? So, like, belief is half a being,
So the same
right?
thing is...
And when you cross, you carry those same ideals over. And so that is what you're creating, right? Because you're still, I know I'm energy, I know I've crossed, but I still remember being human. Right? Like, you
it's
still
that
have that.
transitioning period.
It's that transition period where you can either kind of shed that and move past it and learn past it to get back into that real space, right? Back into heaven or that source.
So if you're really, and this is what I've read, is so if people are really kind of like stubborn and fixed on their belief system, and that is like not changing no matter what, they obviously have a harder time, and they're going to stay in that kind of like purgatory or whatever they believe
for as long until they're ready.
Until they can actually process through that. And I'm like, wouldn't it be, and this is, you know, kind of like a philosophical rhetorical question, but it's like, wouldn't it be better even if you have those beliefs? Like, you can have your beliefs, but I'm kind of like, I have my beliefs, I'm very strong in those beliefs, but I also have like an opening to go, but who knows? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And to me, I think that's so much better than just going, nope, this is it. You know?
I agree. I agree.
Then you don't like put yourself in a position ever, even in life, you know, of being like stuck.
It's so the truth, but you have to remember there are different perspectives, right? Some people, some souls, their whole journey is to just be human, right?
Mm-hmm.
And understand this version of what they've been born into, which could be that stuck repetitive, you know, belief in something,
Mm-hmm.
right? And there's other people who are like, no, my blinders are off and I'm totally open and I'm looking through the world in a different way.
Right.
And I'm open to something different.
Mm-hmm.
It all varies, right? But like that transitional period isn't only even when you're like your version of earth, right? Or your version of death, right? That's part of it. But you can also get stuck there if you have like a deep hurt that you recognize now was a deep hurt that you caused,
Mm-hmm.
and you're looking for that forgiveness from someone who's currently here, right? That can get them stuck into that shedding area too, because they're not ready to move,
right?
because they're trying to resolve it, right? You know, I was a real bad parent and I hurt my kids and I was really bad.
This is hypothetical, by the way.
Hypothetical. I'm so sorry. I don't think I'm a bad parent. I don't believe my kids would say that. But yes, hypothetical.
Depending on the day.
You know, we all have our own understanding of what a bad is. But like, you could be that like really kind of like mean-spirited person, right?
Yeah.
Who caused harm.
Mm-hmm.
And when you finally get to that shedding spot, you're like, oh my God, what did I do? And try to get that forgiveness from that person that you caused harm to, right? And that person can choose to forgive you or not, right? And if they choose not to, it could get you stuck there for a little while because you want to make amends for it.
But it's like putting yourself, it goes back to like putting yourself in your own kind of purgatory.
Exactly.
It's not like it's being done to you.
No.
It's like everything that I've read is like this, it all comes from within.
It's us.
Like we're creating that.
Belief is half a being.
Yeah.
It's totally what we believe. Like it's
That's wild.
it's what we, it's just
wild,
like today
but
though.
It's freeing to me.
Totally.
You know?
But it's the same as like when you look at the world today, right? I can choose to wake up and be crabby and grumpy. And guess what?
Like you did this morning.
Like I was this morning. Very true. I am allowed to be crabby. I'm allowed to be crabby. I was a little crabby this morning. But I chose that, right? I did.
Yeah.
I chose it. I
Yeah.
even said it to you. I was like, hey, I'm crabby today.
Yeah.
Because I was feeling a little crabby, right?
Right.
Now, do I need to stay in that energy? No, I can choose not to be.
Right.
Right? It's that choice. That's the key to kind of living in this life. You know, sometimes we like to place the blame on what's happening on astrology or God or people, right? But ultimately, it's us making those choices.
Right.
And that's the same choices that I believe happens when you leave.
Mm-hmm.
You get to make choices.
Yeah.
Choices are great. I know, it's such a fun topic. It can be a little dark though. It's a tough one, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I would always say, like, you know, it's always good that if you're ever in a space like this and you need to talk, I think it's seeking the people that can talk about it, right?
Yeah, very true.
Commenting below is always a great way because we'll definitely respond in what our beliefs are or even helping you guide through it. But I will tell you the one thing that I learned is that it's the fear. If you can release the fear of death, it really isn't scary.
Well, and it helps us in life. You know, because a lot of times, I mean, what holds us back in life is some fear of some sort, right? And when we're no longer scared like that, the world is just opened up to us and we can really do anything.
It's 100%.
I mean, it's powerful. And the fear is powerful too.
Fear kills love. It's the opposite, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're the same.
Yeah.
It's just two different polarities of the same energy. Which one do you choose? The fear or the love, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a good idea. Like for me, it's always a good idea to go into a practice of releasing fear.
Mm-hmm.
Like whenever you see the fear, you have to release it.
I find that death is a topic that people are so fearful of, in fact, that they don't even, they're not even sure of their belief system. And no matter what your beliefs are, I think it's really important to kind of explore that and figure that out, because that will help you through it. Because like we said, we're all going to experience it. It's going to happen to, everybody we love and us, and obviously it's inevitable. So like as humans, we can't afford to be that scared of it. Obviously, is it awful? Is it scary? Yes. But it doesn't have to be to the level.
Yes.
Like, because I think we go into complete denial about it. And then when it happens, we're like thrown off and destroyed.
I agree. I will tell you, like, one of the things that I want to kind of like highlight is when we're talking about not fearing death, it doesn't mean that you can't feel sad.
Right.
Right? Like, we're human. We're supposed to feel our emotions.
Yeah.
Emotions
Good point.
is the thing that makes us human, right? So for me, it's like, if someone crosses, I feel sad for that. I feel sad for that loss. Whether
you're
it's
still going to go through the grieving process.
Totally, right? But I'm not afraid of where they're going.
Right.
Right? Like, to me, that's not even a question.
Right.
It's just that I'm not going to see you, right?
Yeah.
Or talk to you or be a part of your life
Right.
the way I was used to.
And so what we end up processing with grief is that loss for us, what that means for us, and processing that pain. And, also in talking to anybody who has recently lost a loved one, I say be really careful, because a lot of times we tend to, even when we do have these strong spiritual or religious beliefs, or that they are in a better place, or, they're in heaven, or whatever it might be, when you say that to somebody in the beginning, oh my gosh, like, you just want to punch them in the face, because that is not the time or the place in the beginning of the grieving process. Because that's just in a time where you are validating your own grief, and that's okay. And really, there's no words. So kind of getting off on a different topic, but what I recommend in those moments is to just be there, be present, say, I'm thinking about you, I love you, give them a hand on the shoulder, hold their hand, give them a hug. No words are needed. I love you, I'm here. And
if they're far, virtual hugs. There's little memes that have these virtual hugs.
Or
they
just
do wonders.
Sending a text now and again and saying, I'm thinking about you. Let me know what you need, or asking somebody, what can I do? But saying any kind of, giving any, like, oh, they're in a better place now, they're in heaven, they're not, even if that's that person's belief, it's just not the time, right?
Well, they're experiencing a loss.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to be present in the loss.
Right.
Right. They'll come to terms with where they
later
went in time.
Later on in the that's towards like the end of the grieving process, when they get more towards acceptance, and then that belief sets them free. Then that really helps them let go and accept and heal.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
One of the things that I think is important that you did talk about, because I think it's an important one, is I'm a big believer that you should explore what those options are. I will tell you, in college, I wasn't a spiritual, that wasn't my major, but I took a lot of spiritual classes. And the whole reason I took almost every religion, dying was the big one for me, was understanding, because I wanted to kind of prove my people wrong, to be really honest, because sometimes I like to get
sometimes wrong. That's the motivation.
Sometimes you just have to try to prove the dead wrong, but like I will tell you, like, it helps. And what I always go back to whenever it's kind of like learning, right, about these types of topics, is always remember, like, my favorite thing that Buddha said was listen to what everyone has to say and take what feels right to you.
Yeah.
And that, to me, is the key when it comes to death and dying. Yeah. It's like the crossing over part. It's, what do you believe? And what do you want to believe?
Right.
Because remember, you create that.
It's a choice, too.
So make the choice that you feel good about, not necessarily the choices that you're told. And I think exploring those.
And if that choice,
great.
if choosing to believe that they're there, that they're here with you still in spirit, if that helps you heal and it helps you feel better and move on in life, then why not believe it? It costs you nothing.
And they are.
Yeah.
Well,
I truly believe that 100%.
They are.
But some people who question it are like, and it's like, choose, figure it out, research it a little bit more, figure it out, because really, I mean, it's such a huge part of our lives that we can't afford not to kind of follow that up and research it.
Yeah.
We research, how many hours do we spend in days and weeks and researching
birth,
like random, no, I'm talking about like even stupid stuff online.
Well, I mean, we
can go down the rabbit hole and like some like the
yeah.
dumbest stuff, but like something like this, I don't think we give it the attention that it needs and deserves.
It's fear, and so we
Right.
don't,
It
like, that's
stops
the
us.
difference, right?
Right.
Like when you talk to people who are like having a baby, right, whether
Mhm.
that's actually conceiving or adopting,
Mhm.
like you're bringing a life into your home,
Mhm.
you learn everything you can,
Right.
you talk to people, you
That's
read
true.
all the
Yeah.
books,
Mhm.
like you come up with your own idea of how you're going to parent, right?
Yeah.
Because it's love, so
Right.
you're like excited about it.
Uh-huh.
Death is just
That's a really
the
good
other
point.
side of the circle.
Right.
You should also kind of explore that a little bit,
Yeah.
because it's not as scary as sometimes we're taught or expected to believe.
Well, I feel like a lot of people, the fear will cause that resistance for them to not do it. And then all of a sudden you go into like this denial as if it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Like, it's not going to happen to you. And I'm like, well, I got news for you. It's going to happen. And so it's not going to like, burst your reality bubble. It's, and if anything, I think the more we learn, education really is power, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the more you do, it does help decrease that fear, even if you are an atheist,
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that's fine, no matter what you believe.
But atheists have beliefs.
Right. It's still a belief.
It's there was a thing I had read that was like, prayers and intentions are really the same thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? Atheists have just a belief that is based on logic, right?
Mm-hmm.
But prayers, intention, logic, it's all the same thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? You're connecting with a different power,
Right.
So your death is going to be the same thing, right? It's what you choose,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it's okay to accept and learn more about it.
Yeah, definitely. It's very helpful.
Yeah, we'll definitely provide some links to our preferred, like I have some great references that I always like to include, because this is such a charged topic,
Mm-hmm.
that I typically give to people every time someone sees me and the topic comes up.
And if there's any questions, or you want us to explore other parts of this or any other topics at all, we're planning now for future for next year in terms of topics. So let us know what kind of topics you want to hear.
Yeah, we'd love to hear from you for sure. Until then, have a happy Halloween, happy holidays coming,
And live your life.
live your best life. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.